I paddled the BOTE Rackham Aero Fischer through flooded abandoned coal mines on a kayak fishing adventure with my parents to see if it was truly worth being called an inflatable pedal fishing kayak. I couldn't believe what I discovered in the mines and about this yak. We launched our kayaks and headed to the old flooded strip mine that's known to have bass, catfish, crappie, and bluegill. I expected the fishing to be good because every strip pit that I've ever fished has been incredible, but I wasn't prepared for what this hot August evening had in store. I'd fished one of these pits before, and my mom loves to remind me it's where I accidentally let all the crappie go while taking her on a fishing trip for Mother's Day. I was trying to redeem myself on this trip so she didn't cut me out of her will. As I pedaled into the pit, my expectations were pretty high. I had an inline spinner tied on and started casting it around. The mile or so pedal from the boat ramp to the pit was easy, and my out-of-shape butt still had plenty of energy to fish. However, I felt like I was leaning way too far back, which caused me to cast awkwardly, and I didn't have much power while pedaling. I later realized that this was because I didn't have the board or my seat inflated enough. As long as you inflate the board to 14 to 15 psi and the seat to 10 psi, you shouldn't have a problem. On another trip, I noticed that the pedal mount had a slight wiggle even after inflating the board to 14 psi, but I still had plenty of power to pedal quickly. And on that same trip, I also discovered that the pedal drive doesn't like weeds. Back at the pit, I continued to fish and headed to what I thought was the end of the pit. But it wasn't. It just narrowed and went around a couple of bends before continuing on. I couldn't believe I'd never fished this pit before. I fished all over the lake, and this spot is fairly popular. However, I believe it's only accessible when the water is high. And today, the water was 7 feet high and dropping, making the fishing even more challenging than an average August day. But I pressed on deeper into the pit. I just knew that there had to be fish in here. I stood up to fish for a minute to test the stability, stretch my legs, and change my casting angle to see if that would help get me a bite. I didn't ever feel like I was going to fall in while I was standing, but it didn't help me catch anything, so I sat back down and pedaled further, making random casts at everything that looked like it might hold a fish. I finally made it to the back of the pit and turned around to fish my way out. The Rackham Aero has a surprisingly tight turning radius despite being 12 foot 4 inches long. I never felt like a 180-degree turn was out of the question, even in the tightest parts of the pit. My short 5'6" self found it a little challenging and awkward to reach my Railblazer kayak cart at the back of the board though. I eventually met back up with my parents who had gone down another part of the pit. My mom said she caught a bluegill and a small bass as she reeled in a crappie, but my dad nor I got a bite. On the way out of the pit, I decided to troll a little and ended up getting snagged. I instantly started backpedaling to slow down, stop, and turn around. I'm a big fan of the instant reverse in times like this, even though it catches on the bottom in about 1.5 to 2 foot of water, making shallow water fishing a lot more difficult. As we neared the boat ramp, it struck me just how much I enjoy exploring new places with my parents. It reminds me of when I was a kid and we'd explore a new place together. I cherish these moments even when my mom catches a few small fish to outfish my dad and me. Each time I use the BOTE Rackham Aero with the pedal drive, I become an even bigger fan. It's stable, durable, customizable, pedals and paddles well, and it just looks cool. But I've also found some things that I don't actually like. For starters, it's pricey. At around $1,500 for the board alone, then you have to buy the pedal drive after that. It's just tough for me to justify spending that much on an inflatable paddleboard / kayak, even if I know I will use it a lot. Lucky for me, I don't have to justify it with my wife because this is a test unit sent to me to write about and create content with, like this video. It's also heavy for an inflatable. That's because of the pedal drive and larger than average size. So I wouldn't recommend planning an extensive hike into the backcountry or up into the mountains and floating back down with this bag on your back. But it is lighter and more transport friendly than my hard-sided fishing kayaks. Pedal drive also doesn't fit in the bag with everything else, unless you break it down every time you get off the water. And if you were to put it in the bag, it would add a lot more weight, making it even more difficult to haul anywhere that you couldn't roll it. So who the heck should buy the BOTE Rackham Aero Fischer? If you have some money burning a hole in your pocket, the BOTE Rackham Aero Fischer is definitely worth checking out for serious anglers. I've had a blast on it this summer and enjoyed fishing from it much more than I expected. In fact, it's changed my mind about inflatable paddleboard fishing. I love that it's not a traditional paddleboard because it has dual chambers and it's incredibly customizable. So if this paddleboard kayak hybrid is what you're looking for, click the link in the description to check it out further and purchase it. But if it's too pricey, check out this playlist right here where I've reviewed nearly a dozen other fishing kayaks and paddleboards.